It's no longer the marketplace of ideas that it once was, and it's preventing the web from fulfilling its optimal potential as a place to connect information and people around the world. Hi, I'm Amy James, the Executive Director of the Web3 Working Group, and welcome to the What Kind of Internet Do You Want video series. We're going to be breaking down Web3 concepts, talking about how the web developed and what the future of the web will look like. So please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's dive into it. So to get started, let's first talk about what's wrong with Web2. The client-server design of the protocol that built the web and its lack of a value transfer protocol have led to three major problems. The protocol that creates the World Wide Web, Hypertext Transfer Protocol, or HTTP, has a client-server design, which means that the only way clients, well, technically clients are web browsers, but for simplification, let's just think of clients as users. The only way users can access information is by asking for it from servers, and that server has to be privately owned. One of the biggest changes from the era of Web 1 to Web 2 was control of the servers. When the web began in the early 90s, everyone ran their own servers. But in the Web 2 era, everything moved onto the cloud, which is really just a fancy marketing term for these massive centralized server farms that store and distribute data. The first problem in Web 2 is the siloing of content. When the web was first introduced, individuals and businesses ran their own servers, sometimes from their home computers. And this meant that information data was decentralized. But in the era of Web 2, data became consolidated because, like with many industries, running warehouses of servers at scale was more efficient, less expensive, and offered features that individuals just couldn't compete with. So everything moved to the cloud. The server infrastructure became centralized and information data became siloed. And the problem with all of this centralization and data siloing is that it creates self-reinforcing monopolies. And this prevents smaller companies from even competing, even if they're offering new innovation or a higher quality service. The bigger the platform is, the larger the user base, the more it controls the infrastructure, the larger the platform becomes. And this cycle just continued on until all of the information on the web became controlled by a handful of companies. The second major problem for the web is that it doesn't have a native value transfer protocol. The early pioneers of the web talked about the need for native value transfer because it could be used to solve problems like spam and DDoS attacks.
We had no native money, right? We had no native ability to do money. We had no way to do microtransactions. We knew this at the time.
And many attempts were made to build one, but none of them were successful until the introduction of Bitcoin in 2009. Without an internet native value transfer protocol, the web has been monetized primarily through ads. It's really the financial backbone of the web is advertising. And this incentive has essentially resulted in surveillance, monitoring, manipulation, and censorship as a business model. To maximize their revenue, Web2 companies more or less spy on the user's activity so that they can provide targeted ads or sell user data to other companies. And whether companies are engaging in these activities simply to maximize their profits or for other editorial reasons, users are unable to know how their personal data is being used or how the content they see is being filtered. I'm not saying that companies shouldn't be able to filter content. There are valid and important reasons for filtering. But because the web is dominated by monopolies incentivized to maximize ad sales, it's no longer the marketplace of ideas that it once was. And it's preventing the web from fulfilling its optimal potential as a place to connect information and people around the world. The third major problem with Web 2 is probably the least well known. Its infrastructure is enormously
inefficient.
While much has been said about Bitcoin and proof of work mining being resource intensive and Generally, those arguments are overly simplistic to the point of being wrong, but we'll make another video about that separately. There is actually an incredible amount of excessive redundancy in Web 2 because the data is centralized and siloed. It's stored and distributed separately by each private company. For example, consider the catalogs of Spotify and Apple Music. They are incredibly similar, but the companies don't share any resources. It's all redundantly stored and distributed. And since every customer streams the data exclusively from those companies' servers, and the centralized data centers need to be in relatively close proximity to the users for distribution to perform well, the data is further redundantly stored around the country and around the world. The wasteful use of resources is really not something that these companies worry about because the cost for storage and distribution are minuscule when compared to the costs that they incur to acquire or create content. However, the resources required for this infrastructure, from the energy required to create and maintain it to the electricity required to run it, are very high. Video streaming accounts for almost half of all internet traffic, and the Web 2 infrastructure that stores and distributes the content is incredibly wasteful. One of the reasons that Web 3 is really inevitable is that it has a far more effective technical design and incentives that increase efficiency. And the irony is, all of the largest Web 2 companies are closed private systems built on a foundation of open source interoperable protocols. Web 3 will turn the services Web 2 platforms provide into new open source interoperable protocols, which will foster competition and innovation, providing users verifiably transparent access to information and improving efficiency of resource use. We'll get into what Web 3 is more in the next video. So for now, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and maybe share this with somebody who is looking to better understand the differences between Web 2 and Web 3. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.